month and plus a few extra days, I've been reading this book for the evening class. I'll Build You a Temple, the Juhu story, Giriraj Maharaj. And there is about 23 pages left in the book. So I thought I'd finish up the book. Yeah? You familiar with it's the opening of the Juhu temple. It hasn't opened yet. It's about to open. We could hardly sleep for nights before the grand opening. There was so much to do. And we were so excited. Many devotees had participated in the effort, but I also began to notice that some of our leaders preferred to work with or accommodate only their friends. Tamal Krishna commented that we had entered a new era. During Prabhupada's time, we had all worked together for his pleasure. Now, many devotees are returned to their home countries and cities to be in places where and among people with whom, based on their conditioning, they felt most comfortable. Still, generally everyone had cooperated very nicely and worked hard to publicize and organize the event. Finally, the big day arrived. Saturday, Makara Sankranti, January 14th, 1978, exactly 2 months after Prabhupada's disappearance. Visitors started streaming through the gates from early in the morning, and our loyal supporters, who had stood by Prabhupada and the devotees through thick and thin throughout all the years of struggle against so much opposition, were there to relish the triumphant occasion. Altogether, 15,000 people attended the inaugural function. The temple was decorated with elaborate flower arrangements, including festoons of marigolds strung from the large chandelier hanging from the center of the ceiling of the Darshan Mandap to the pillars and balconies at the perimeter of the hall. When the conch shells sounded and the doors opened to reveal the deities in their new home, the devotees were overwhelmed with joy. Rasa Bihari had such a big smile, Pundarika Vidyanidhi remembered. That was one time when I saw that the deity was really alive. He had such a big smile on his face when the doors opened. A row of ornate chairs, like thrones, had been arranged for special guests. Sri Basant Dada Patil, Chief Prime Minister of Maharashtra. To his left, Sri Prabhudas Patwari, Governor of Tamil Nadu. To his left, Sri Raj Narain, Union or Central Government Minister of Health and Family Welfare. To his left was Tamal Krishna, and to the Chief Minister's right was Sri Dharms Sin Dadabai Desai, MP. I sat on his right and at the end of the row. My heart was pounding with excitement. Scenes from the years of struggles flashed through my mind, and now it was actually happening. Sri Radharasi Bihari's new temple was about to open. How I wished Srila Prabhupada could have been personally present to relish the occasion and bless the honored guests, the throngs of visitors, and his disciples who had labored so long and hard to bring us to this stage with his divine instructions. But Krishna had another plan. We were to experience Prabhupada's presence even in separation and assume the responsibility for which he had so carefully and patiently trained us all those years. I prayed that everything would go well, that there wouldn't be any mishaps or missteps, and that my nervousness wouldn't balk or bungle anything. And as we had realized so vividly when we were trying to leave Vrindavan for Calcutta and Mayapur, I knew that at every step I was completely dependent upon Srila Prabhupada's mercy. You want me to move something? It's okay. I had arranged for a framed picture of Sri Nathaji to be installed to appeal to his followers, who are mainly Gujaratis, and I gave the honor of unveiling it to Sri Didi Desai, who had helped us in many ways. In his talk, Chief Minister Patil said that all people should follow Lord Krishna's advice in Bhagavad-Gita for eternal peace and happiness. Raj Narain spoke in appreciation of the devotees, saying, "It is amazing to me that now Westerners have taken to the Indian culture just when we are losing it." Governor Patwari spoke extensively about the temple's universal value and appeal. Quote, "I deem it a blessing to be associated with this solemn function. The Krishna consciousness movement is a divine spark, a movement which is meant to give peace and happiness to millions of people all over the world. So I welcome the construction of this temple and the opening of the Bhaktivedanta Cult Center of Vedic culture in this great cosmopolitan city of Bombay, where people of all races, nationalities, castes, and communities, high and low, live in amity. I have no doubt that this Vedic institution will proclaim to the world that here flourishes a great movement which has become the symbol of eternal religion, Sanatana Dharma." He's a statesman. He's going to keep going. Krishna appeared like a common cowherd boy, and therefore he is attractive to the common man. Numerous incidents of his life from childhood onward reveal how easily he destroyed evil forces and brought success for the good. Now, the Krishna consciousness movement has become an international movement, and this is due to the spiritual stature of Sri A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who, with single-minded devotion, dedication, and love for humanity, spread the gospel of Sri Krishna from continent to continent. Through the exalted mission of Swamiji, the life and teachings of Lord Krishna have inspired millions of men and women throughout the world. The departure of this great world teacher of God consciousness is a severe loss for the whole world. But I am sure he will continue to guide the Krishna consciousness movement through his teachings as he was guided by Lord Krishna. Paragraph. What is Krishna consciousness? It is an eternal awareness of Lord Krishna's greatness and glory as revealed by him in his avatar. Krishna consciousness teaches us that Prema Bhakti and Nam Sankirtan constitute the best and easiest pathway to God for all people, a pathway free from perils and pitfalls. Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada added new dimensions to this divine mission. And he's going to go on for a couple of pages. No one in this world can call himself happy at all times because trials and tribulations sometimes shake a man's faith and life itself becomes a burden. Material prosperity alone cannot give us genuine peace. For that we need spiritual wisdom. Turn the pages of Bhagavad-Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam Mahapurana. Each verse in each chapter contains the quintessence of spiritual wisdom. Those scriptures have through the centuries inspired saints and sages in India. Mahatma Gandhi used to consult the Gita whenever he was in doubt or difficulty. He once said, quote, "The Gita is the universal mother. She turns away nobody. Her door is wide open to anyone who knocks. A true votary of the Gita does not know what disappointment is. He ever dwells in perennial joy and peace that passeth understanding." That's a biblical statement. Peace that passeth understanding. Anyway. Which are reserved only for the humble in spirit. When disappointment stares me in the face, and all alone I see not one ray of light, I go back to the Bhagavad-Gita. I find a verse here and a verse there, and I immediately begin to smile in the midst of overwhelming tragedies. My life has been full of external tragedies, and if they have left no visible mark, no indelible scar on me, I owe it all to the teachings of Bhagavad-Gita, unquote. He was quoting Gandhi. He goes on. In Bhagavad-Gita, Lord Krishna says, Pritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha duskritam, for the protection of the good, the destruction of the wicked, and the establishment of righteousness, I appear in every age. The great savants of the world have been moved by the Lord's teaching. Out of great concern for us, the Lord, the supreme benefactor of mankind, teaches us through his Gita to do every act as a yajna, sacrifice, without attachment to the fruits of our actions. It is only by a detached outlook in life that we can overcome sorrows and get peace of mind. Attachment takes us away from God, and detachment takes us nearer to him. By doing everything as a sacrifice to him, for his sake, we remove false egoism, and from ourselves, and free ourselves from such ideas of I, my, and mine. Lord Krishna says, Sarvadharmam parityaja mamekam sharanam braja, abandoning all other duties of the body, mind, and intellect, ending the false ego, and developing introspection. Come to me alone for shelter. I will liberate thee from all sins. Grieve not. What Lord Krishna teaches Arjuna in the Gita, and what he teaches Uddhava in the Bhagavatam, is the highest and most sublime philosophy, which offers wise guidance to us in day-to-day life. The merciful Lord says that he expects nothing from his devotees except single-minded devotion. The devotee can offer him even a leaf, a flower, a drop of water, but it is the devotee's love for him that matters. The Lord's love for us has to be matched by our love for him. And he's a statesman. He's going to go on some more. Srimad Bhagavatam enjoys universal popularity as the bhakti scripture par excellence. It has inspired the writing of extensive devotional literature, not only in Sanskrit but also in many other Indian as well as foreign languages. The Bhagavatam holds out hope even for the chronic sinner, if only he will open his heart to the gentle influence of the love and charm of Lord Krishna. Like the Gita, it presents a program of practical spiritual training through a harmonious combination of Gyan, Bhakti, and Karma, suited to the temperament and limitations of the aspirant. let us, on this occasion, make a solemn resolve to strengthen the Krishna consciousness movement by untiringly spreading the teachings of Lord Krishna through many languages to all people in all nooks and corners of the world. In this way, by our genuine devotion to Krishna and by our austerities, we may create an international climate of peace and happiness and lay the foundation for a religious order acceptable to all on the basis of universal love and brotherhood. May we chant Hare Krishna, Jai Shri Krishna, to purify our hearts and minds, and may Lord Krishna shower his blessings on humanity and make our humble endeavors a success. So that was it. That was the first of 3 days, I think. The next section is entitled Work to be Done. The next day, Sunday, we had a massive, festive Harinam Sankirtan at Juhu Beach with hundreds of devotees, many carrying orange flags that blew in the wind, and a framed photo and small brass deity of Srila Prabhupada at the front of the procession. There were even fireworks launched from coconut shells, making loud popping noises and flashes in the sky. Because my parents had come to India in October, they hadn't been able to come back for the opening, but my second parents, quote, Grace and Mitchell Block, close friends of our family from the neighboring suburb of Highland Park in Chicago, attended. I had never imagined that they would come all the way to Bombay to see me. What to speak of timing their visit to coincide with the temple opening? I was elated. They were highly impressed with the entire complex, especially the temple, and of course, we were delighted to be together again, especially after so much time had passed and so much in my life had changed. I arranged a special lunch for them on the mezzanine floor of the restaurant, overseen by Mitchell Lord in his most dignified and charming manner, and again, they were duly pleased and impressed. Mitchell's firm, Block and Company, manufactured products related to banking and other industries that interacted with the public, and seeing the needs at the reception counter in the guest house, he sent a key cabinet and some other items which are still being used today. One of our first-time visitors, a lawyer, R.K. Maheshri, later initiated as Mahaprabhu Das, later remembered hearing about the opening day. I was playing cards at Car Gymkhana, a well-known club in this area, and all of a sudden I saw a newspaper with a full-page advertisement about the Hare Krishna temple opening that day. So I thought, how much money do these people have? A full-page advertisement in the Times of India? Being a Marwari, I always thought of everything in terms of money. Then I decided, let me see what this place is. And I immediately drove to the Juhu temple. At the gate, they asked me, have you got a pass or invitation card? Vaijayanti Mala is giving a dance performance and the hall is booked. And Raj Narain, union minister, and Patwari, governor, are coming for the inauguration. So there's a big crowd, and only important people are invited today. "Is this a temple or what?" I asked. "Well, today is inauguration day," the devotee replied. So I approached another devotee, an Indian, Ram Tulsi. He was telling a group of visitors that, like fish out of water, in the material world nobody is happy. You are searching for happiness in the wrong atmosphere. The Gita has confirmed that this material world is dukkhalayam, a place of misery. The visitors were asking about the temple, why these foreigners were so much interested in Indian culture. "We are having some doubt," one said, "because when the British came to India, now most of the people here are American. They're coming in the guise of religion and teaching us our Sanatana Dharma. We cannot understand all this. We know Krishna very well." But Ram Krishna was speaking philosophy. This is now still Mahaprabhu. "If you want to be happy," he told them, "connect yourself with Lord Krishna by chanting the holy name of the Lord. That is the connection. And if you chant the holy name of the Lord, wherever you may be, whatever situation, you will be blissful." I'm not talking happiness. You may be happy, you may not be happy, but blissful is something different. I cannot explain to you what is spiritual bliss. You have to experience it. So yes, that much I understood. I wanted to know more. I wanted to go inside, so I found some stairs. And I got to the second floor and saw the program. I spent the whole day in the temple, and the next day too. And I came regularly thereafter. I could see that these people were genuine. And I made up my mind that I wanted to get involved in their institution and become a life member. My membership card was signed by the temple president, Giriraj Das Brahmachari. I was keen to get his association. And once I met him, that changed the lifestyle of this practicing lawyer of the Bombay High Court. For me, that was a total change. I had been so much involved in material things that when my wife would go to a temple, I would sit in the car. I was never interested to go to any temple because my impression of temples was that they were all cheats, fooling people and making money and not following any rules or regulations or properly guiding people, just making a business. But all that changed with my first visit to the Hare Krishna land on the day of the grand opening. Poonam Thakur, the daughter of two of our early life members and supporters in Juhu, recalled, "I remember as a child being in the old temple and looking up at the tin roof and wondering, how come these beautiful Radha Krishna deities are in such a humble place? I had no idea of the struggles being endured by the devotees for the grand Juhu temple. A couple of years later, when I saw the temple after its opening, my eyes grew large in amazement and awe. What a magnificent temple for their lordships." After the grand opening, Mukunda remembered, I took a stroll down Juhu Road, thinking that Srila Prabhupada would be very pleased. I felt that somehow or other, even though he was no longer physically present, the movement was going on. Bhagavad-Gita had described the temple, quote, "The heart of the Bombay Center is the temple of Sri Sri Radha Rasabihari. The temple is a majestic structure replete with 24 domes of sculptured marble. The visitor passes through a finely carved red sandstone gate and up 3 marble stairs. Then he enters a large courtyard bordered by marble pillars and floral engraved arches. Graceful trees shade the courtyard's marble floor." Paragraph. In alcoves on either side of the courtyard, 15 colorful diorama dioramas depict scenes from the ancient Bhagavatam, Gita, and Ramayana. And Giriraj comments, I had arranged the dioramas to both attract and educate visitors, particularly Hindus, many of whom worship various incarnations of Krishna, but also different demigods, misunderstanding them to be equal to or independent of the original personality Godhead, to satisfy pilgrims looking for deities of Vittala or Dattatreya, who are especially popular in Maharashtra, or demigods and goddesses such as Shiva, Ganesh, and Lakshmi. We had dioramas depicting them and signboards describing them in relation to Krishna consciousness. The signboard for Lakshmi Devi, for instance, explained that according to her desire, quote, the Supreme Personality Godhead made his bosom her residence so that by her glance she could favor everyone, including the demigods and ordinary human beings, unquote. But that although karmis seek her favor and mercy, quote, because they are not devotees of Narayana, their opulence is flickering. The opulence of devotees who are attached to the service of Narayana is not like the opulence of karmis. The opulence of devotees is as permanent as the opulence of Narayana himself. Bhagavatam 8.8.25. Now this is page 663, and the book ends on 678, which means we have another 15 pages. How we doing? 15 pages?
You need some more.
Huh?
You need some more.
Okay.
Which book is this?
I will build you a temple.
This is the final section of the whole. It's a long ordeal of all the history of the challenges and this and that and so many things.
Juhu temple.
Now it's the opening of the Juhu temple. And then people describing what their experience was of that temple at the time of opening. And Giriraj is the author of the book, and it was, Mr. Juhu temple from the beginning. The board for Nrsingadev told the story of his vanquishing the demon Hiranyakashipu and protecting his devotee Prahlad, concluding, quote, materialistic plans for godless demons are always frustrated by the all-powerful Lord, unquote. There was also a diorama summarizing the transmigration of the soul from one body to another, one with an elaborate text highlighting the glories of Lord Chaitanya, one of the Rasa dance, with a quotation from Krishna book, explaining that the Rasa dance was a spiritual performance and that to establish this fact, Krishna expanded himself into many forms and stood beside each gopi, and one depicting Srila Prabhupada speaking in New York's Tompkins Square in the summer of 1966, with text in first person as if Prabhupada were speaking directly to the viewer. Paragraph. As the article explained after entering, this is the Back to Godhead magazine article about the temple opening. To the right of the courtyard, near the temple's front side, the visitor finds a darshan mandap and a vyasasan. In front of 3 altars are huge teakwood doors with brass castings that depict Krishna's 24 main incarnations, and beyond the doors stand the deities on handsomely carved, silver-plated teakwood simhasanas. On the left altar stood Lord Nityananda and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and at their feet, also carved in marble, sat Srila Prabhupada and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. On the central altar were Sri Sri Radha Rasa Bihari and Lalita and Vishakha. And on the right, altar were Sri Sri Sitaram, Lakshman, and Hanuman. Paragraph. At the new Bombay Center, the article described, India's rich spiritual culture can express itself in a thoroughly modern setting. The center lies on 4 acres of Bombay's picturesque Juhu beach and includes a spacious marble temple, a theater, a restaurant, a bank, a Vedic library, a twin-towered 7-story hotel. The project cost more than $2 million and took nearly 3 years to build. Paragraph. Now, people who are unfamiliar with the philosophy of Krishna consciousness might well ask, why would a spiritual group that prizes renunciation and detachment want to build a theater and a modern hotel? For an answer, we may turn to one of the Krishna conscious movement's spiritual giants and founder, Srila Rupa Goswami. In his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, he provides many of the philosophical and practical guidelines for today's International Society for Krishna Consciousness, and here is what he writes about renunciation. Quote, when one is not attached to anything, but at the same time uses everything in Lord Krishna's service, one is situated in complete renunciation. On the other hand, one who rejects everything, not knowing how to use things in Krishna's service, is not as complete in his renunciation, unquote. So, renunciation doesn't mean walking around in a loincloth or fasting for weeks on end. Rather, in the spirit of detachment, we should use everything, including modern hotels and theaters, to glorify God. In the last paragraph of the BTG article. There are several reasons why Srila Prabhupada chose Bombay for this ambitious project. First, Bombay is to India what New York or Los Angeles is, should be R, to the United States. A leader in commerce and culture. For instance, the main offices in Air India are in Bombay, as are the headquarters of India's burgeoning film industry. Bombay is perhaps India's most modern and cosmopolitan city. And more important, it is a city whose people cherish their spiritual heritage. In fact, many of its leading citizens are great devotees of Lord Ram and Lord Krishna. So, Srila Prabhupada knew that Bombay would welcome the kind of center he envisioned, and through their overwhelming encouragement and assistance, well, it's kind of the opposite, these people have borne out not only Srila Prabhupada's clarity of vision, but also modern India's continuing spiritual vitality. Then there's a break. 2 days after the opening, New York Times ran an article on the front page of its second section with a headline, Hare Krishna sect displays vitality at its new $2 million temple in India. Juhu, India, January 15th, several hundred members of the Hare Krishna sect, chanting and singing and clapping, opened a $2 million temple and cultural center here this weekend in a colorful festival of devotion. Paragraph. To the young American monks of the movement, the dedication of their sumptuous carved marble temple on the Arabian seacoast here, 10 miles north of Bombay, symbolized a kind of coming of age of the sect, which they hope is becoming less controversial. Interesting remark. We are gaining a broader base among the general public in both India and America, explained Tamal Krishna, a 32-year-old New Yorker who is a member of the organization's 23-member governing board. We're learning that there's no way we're going to give Krishna consciousness a general appeal if we make everyone shave their heads and chant Hare Krishna all day long. But, like most leaders of the movement, Tamal Krishna, who was Thomas Herzig when he was growing up in the Upper West Side of Manhattan, does have a shaved head, a saffron-colored flowing garment called a dhoti, and streaks of Ganges River mud on his forehead. Like all of them, he chants this mantra at least 1,728 times a day. Spells out the whole Hare Krishna mantra. The chant, which has been sung with stomping feet on hundreds of American street corners in the 12 years since the International Society for Krishna Consciousness was started in New York, was the motif of the weekend here. Crowds shouted it to the beat of drums and cymbals as each statue of Krishna was anointed, as each of the huge teak and brass temple doors was opened, and as marigolds and bananas were laid in offering beside the silver-plated altars. But one difference between this celebration and the performances in the United States was reflected in the fact that India's health minister and other high government officials were among the speakers at the dedication ceremony, lending respectability. Quote, as a saffron-clad monk from Miami Beach put it, quote, when we come to India, we are coming home. Paragraph. This is New York Times. Spiritualism is common to Indians, and several thousand of them visited the new temple here during the opening ceremony, joining enthusiastically in the chant of homage to Krishna, Hindu god, and responding with alacrity when the American monks greeted them in the Hindu fashion, palms pressed together under their chins as if in prayer. But the International Society for Krishna Consciousness is still essentially American, as it has been ever since it was founded by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, an Indian-born ascetic who went to New York in 1965 with the idea of combining Indian spiritual wisdom and American resourcefulness, a lame man and a blind man helping each other to walk, in the analogy he used to make. Paragraph. Still New York Times. By the time of his death 2 months ago, at the age of 81, Swami Prabhupada had built up a movement that has 10,000 full-time monks and an annual income, its present leaders say, of $16 million from the sale of its books, mostly the Swami's translations and interpretations of the ancient Vedic scriptures. Paragraph. The Hare Krishna movement, the Hare Krishna people, a term they use themselves, are reluctant to disclose the details of their finances, but it is known that they have at least a few very substantial donors, including George Harrison, the former Beatle, and Alfred Ford, a great-grandson of the founder of the Ford Motor Company, and a nephew of Henry Ford II. In the last few years, the Society has acquired working farms in several American states, as well as 24 big urban properties, including a 14-story temple and hotel at 340 West 55th Street in New York, which it bought for $1 million. Paragraph. Another sign of what its leaders like to think of as its move into the establishment, with capital letter, was a ruling in Queens last year by Justice John J. Leahy of the state Supreme Court. He turned aside allegations of brainwashing and ruled that the members of the movement should be allowed to practice, quote, the religion of their choice. To the Hare Krishna people, that ruling drew the line between their sect and what they disdain as, quote, the modernistic cults, such as the Children of God. They also see a great distinction between themselves and the thousands of other young Americans attracted by Indian mysticism in the fact that instead of the self-indulgence offered by some swamis, Krishna consciousness demands an extraordinarily rigorous routine in which gambling, smoking, drinking, taking drugs, and eating meat, eggs, and fish are all forbidden, as is any sexual activity that does not have conception as its immediate goal. But beyond the extremely religious vanguard, there is a growing body of other members of the faith who believe to one extent or another in the society's interpretation of the ancient text of Lord Krishna. The society, which regards itself as the most orthodox exponent of Hinduism, decrees that spiritual purification through the omnipresent Lord Krishna can lead to a life free of anxiety and to, quote, pure unending blissful consciousness, unquote. Its leaders say there are tens of thousands of sympathizers in America, and perhaps more than that attending its temples in India. Tamal Krishna, who is called His Holiness, and carries a 6-foot orange staff as a symbol of complete control of his senses, looks towards a day when Krishna consciousness will be unexceptional in American society. Quote, when you go to the factory or the office and the guy at the next bench or the next desk is a Krishna follower, then we won't be regarded as weird anymore, he said. And believe me, that day is coming. That's it for the New York Times. The article carried 2 photos, one with the caption, a young American Krishna follower gives Sanskrit discourse to Indian counterparts at festivities, and the other with Hare Krishna devotees chanting at dedication of their new temple in Juhu, India on Saturday. Paragraph. The January 30th edition of Newsweek carried nearly a full page about the opening, in color, a rare feature for the time, with the heading, Krishna by the Sea. At the top of the page was an image of the diorama of Srila Prabhupada standing in Tompkins Square Park next to a photo of the new temple and guest house with a caption, Rags to Riches, diorama of Swami teaching, $2 million complex. Paragraph. The rituals performed, the article stated, were as old as India itself. The Sanskrit chants, the sacrificial fire, the bathing of the marble deities in sacred Ganges water, but the celebration was essentially American. For 3 days last week, several hundred saffron-robed U.S. members of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness descended on a fashionable beach resort in suburban Bombay to dedicate their new $2 million temple complex, complete with hotel, library, theater, and neon signs that flash such blessings as your life will be sublime. The affair was aimed at establishing a legitimacy for the Krishna consciousness movement found in a Greenwich Village storefront 12 years ago by Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who died last November. Today, the movement numbers only 10,000 devotees, half of them in the U.S. Still, the sect, which forbids meat, alcohol, tobacco, and illicit sex, claims to earn close to $20 million a year. The number got bigger in the course of 2 weeks. Largely from the sales of prolific Swami's writings. The dedication ceremonies attracted 15,000 spectators, including Indian Health Minister Raj Narain. It is amazing to me, he said, that now Westerners have taken to the ancient Indian culture just when we are losing it. Paragraph. At the bottom was a photo of the procession on Juhu Beach and one of a devotee speaking at the foot of Prabhupada's Vyasasan. The caption read, "Spreading the Swami's word, a joyous procession on the beach, a devotee lecturing inside the temple." At the front of the procession was a portable seat with a photo and a small brass deity of Srila Prabhupada, and standing near the deity, I was fanning him with a chamra. The devotee preaching in the temple was Tamal Krishna. At the front of the magazine was a small photo with the caption, "Barry came with a Krishna follower," that's Gopal Krishna, and a preview of the main article. I thought of how perfectly Krishna or Srila Prabhupada had arranged everything. There I was, fanning Prabhupada, happy in my position as a simple servant, and there was Tamal Krishna sitting behind one of Prabhupada's books, his right arm extended, preaching forcefully on Prabhupada's behalf, his natural position, and Gopal Krishna, who always worked with the media, was shown with the reporter. It all seemed perfect. How happy Prabhupada would have been to see the coverage. How major news media were recognizing and appreciating his and ISKCON's progress, quote, from rags to riches. I could just picture him smiling broadly, his eyes wide, beaming with pleasure. So there's another 10 pages. Maybe I'll just cover a little section, we'll end. There was tremendous momentum from the grand opening, and I was enthusiastic to offer Srila Prabhupada and Sri Sri Radharasa Bihari's mercy to everyone, but there was also so much work to be done. Now that the temple complex had been opened, our challenge was to manage and use it as Prabhupada had wanted. His vision for Juhu included many programs, and I reviewed his instructions to me. Here's one in he's got them listed chronologically. Oh, so this goes to page 71, and then there's an epilogue. Okay, so here's what Prabhupada wanted Juhu to be. From December 1971. Recently, we have received one letter from Cox and Kings, one of the world's biggest travel agencies, requesting us to kindly assist them by providing facilities for all the tourists coming from foreign places who are interested in seeing the real spiritual life of India. So in this way, we shall work here. Then in April 72, as soon as possible, we should open our own school and teach children Krishna consciousness through English medium That is one of our programs. Our school will not be government recognized because we cannot follow the government syllabus. We want to teach only Krishna consciousness. Try to introduce immediately Krishna conscious instruction to the students through English medium. I know many parents are eager to educate their wards through English medium. If we can introduce this system, our girl disciples may be engaged for teaching them little English grammar, reading and writing, geography, arithmetic, history, Sanskrit, but all of them should be Krishna conscious. That is Bhagavata program. Komara Acharet Pragyo Dharman Bhagavataniha. April 72. This 2 weeks later. This food distribution program is to be done very, very nicely. Generally, people make a plea that why are there so many hungry and naked? So we invite all hungry and naked people to come to us, and we will give them food and clothing and Krishna consciousness as well. Our temple should be the via media for feeding the poor with food and spiritual knowledge. Our Bombay program should be based on giving Krishna consciousness through the English medium and distribution of prasadam without any discrimination. This will enhance our prestige and will accelerate our spiritual life as well. So those are 2 letters in April. Here's one in June 72. You can introduce the Betnam system, whereby one person purchases the use of one room or some rooms for his lifetime, and whenever he may come to stay, the room must be vacated immediately for his residence for as long as he likes, but if he leaves, someone else may use the room in his absence. All good men should spend their weekends with us, away from business, and they may bring family, and it will be Vaikuntha in Hare Krishna land. June, this is the last one, June 872. It's the same letter, different message. If we make our deity worship program extremely opulent and gorgeous, and if all the devotees are always attending arati and holding kirtan in front of the deities, that will be the best program for attracting the Indian people to Krishna consciousness movement. So, try to give the pujaris all assistance to improve the standard of deity worship and always render Radha and Krishna the most sincere intention. Now we have just 1 page remaining. It's this opening the temple, the promise fulfilled. The promise is, I'll build you the temple. I'll build you a temple. He had also written in a Bhagavatam purport 3:25-36, quote, "It is a prescribed duty in temple worship that not only should one visit the temple and to see the deity nicely decorated, but at the same time he should hear the recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad-Gita, or some similar literature, which is regularly recited in the temple. It is the system in Vrindavan that in every temple there is a recitation of the Shastras. Even third-class devotees who have no literary knowledge, or no time to read Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad-Gita, get the opportunity to hear about the pastimes of the Lord. In this way, their minds may remain always absorbed in the thought of the Lord, his form, his activities, and his transcendental nature," unquote. So, we knew that Shastra recitation, preaching, has to be part of our regular temple program. Paragraph. The temple would no doubt attract throngs of visitors, but they would come with different mentalities and motives, and our mission would be to purify them and engage them and elevate them in Krishna consciousness. Some visitors would come just to offer obeisances to the deities and pray, put some money in the box, and leave feeling good, considering that they had done some pious act and hoping for some material return. Quote, I will give you such and such donation if you give me such and such a result. But when, some time before the temple opened, Prabhupada's friend, Brijratan Mahata, had told him, if you want to get a lot of money in the donation box, you have to start spreading rumors that people who give money to these deities get good results. They get a lot of benefit. Prabhupada replied, no, we don't make business with our God. Our challenge was to give people the message of Krishna consciousness so that they would actually surrender to the process and engage in unmotivated devotional service, to speak to people about Krishna as Vrindavan Chandra had put it. Paragraph. In January 1972 letter, Prabhupada had explained to me how he spoke about Krishna. Quote, the fact is that I am only one, the only one in India who is openly criticizing not only impersonalism and demigod worship, but everything that falls short of complete surrender to Krishna. My Guru Maharaj never compromised in his preaching, nor will I, nor should any of my students. We are firmly convinced that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and that all others are his part and parcel servants. This we must declare boldly to the whole world, that they should not foolishly dream of world peace unless they are prepared to surrender fully to Krishna as Supreme Lord. 2 more paragraphs. That was Prabhupada's mood. That had been his Guru Maharaj's mood. And that was the mood he wanted us to have. But I felt so tiny compared with him and his predecessors. And with all humility, feeling quite inadequate, I prayed that we would be able to represent him and present his message properly. Final paragraph. Prabhupada invested a great deal of faith and time and energy in his disciples, which inspired us to want to justify his faith and fulfill his hopes for us. Quote, Bombay means Giriraj, and Giriraj means Bombay, he had said to encourage me. Bombay is like Kurukshetra, and Giriraj is our Arjuna. Remembering his words, I felt humbled and missed him dearly. What a way to end, huh? Okay. He's a good writer. And just a comment about, there's so many details, there's so many names, and so many conversations, and I wrote him, because when I started reading this, because two somebody's recommended that I read it, and I started reading, I wrote to him saying, I can't even imagine how many hours you invested in getting all these details down. And he just wrote back, many. Good writer. This is the kind of topic that's not, this discussion topic. It's just glorification of Prabhupada and a grand offering of service to His Divine Grace. Meant a lot to Prabhupada. I mean, I had no... The most direct involvement I had in the Juhu temple was from New York, we sent $100,000 to Prabhupada, or to the Juhu project. That was just to get, to secure the purchase of the land. No, it was for a contract with the contractor. Anyway, we worked really hard. I didn't know much about what it was other than Prabhupada wanted it, and we just worked hard. And it's mentioned here how it came at the right time. But an important showcase place for Prabhupada's movement. That's how he saw it, how he wanted it, and it's become like that. How many people have visited that temple and been impacted? Okay, well, that's the end of the book. And tomorrow we're going to start in preparing for Lord Nityananda's appearance day. Yeah, I plan to read some different sections on from Chaitanya Bhagavat, because we're not used to hearing Chaitanya Bhagavat, on different Lord Nityananda's marriage and his childhood pastimes in Ekachakra, and their first meeting, the meeting of Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, some things like that. And the way Vrindavan Das Thakur has described is very nice. What to speak of Bhaktisiddhanta's elevated commentary. Okay, thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Oh, you brought something. Oh.